kind of read through the narrative? Not quite. Some slight dirty looks from the front. By the way, I should just add that I'm not sure what I did on Tuesday, but I must have lent something up against something, I don't know. But the last about 20 minutes, 19, 20 minutes of the recording cuts in and out all the time, which is, so you pick up little bits of it, but not much. And so in the end, I just decided the easiest thing to do was just cut it at 30 minutes at a really sensible sort of a place where I could then just pick up one topic and carry on. So I'll do 3 short recordings, which actually covers withdrawal as one short bit, presence of a weapon, and the weapon, the warning around presence of a weapon is another bit, and then homicide for those of you, because obviously we're not covering homicide in your end of year exam, but for those of you that are interested in what it means for party liability for cases involving manslaughter, murder, as a separate one, so that the rest of you don't have to labour your way through that if you don't want to. It's sort of fascinating area of the law, which I appreciate that probably not everyone is fascinated by, but so I'll do 3 short recordings for you to make it easier for you, and it probably means that you'll end up with a more coherent explanation of the law than me trying to race through it as I was on Tuesday. Just for those of you that missed Tuesday's lecture, you might be going, why have we only got an hour and a half? That's why. Okay, so having read the fact pattern, or hopefully having read the fact pattern, as I said, I want you to be thinking about where you're going to start in whether or not you look at one individual, whether or not you start with an offence, or what is going to be the best way in answering a question where you've got party liability coming in there. Okay, because you obviously want it to be logical, you want it to make sense, you don't want to have to start again once you get part of the way through it. So anyone got any thoughts as to where you might start on this one? Principal offender, but for what offence?
I said burglary.
Burglary? Okay, why?
Because then you can do the theft, the analysis. Because they're all inside the house. So then you can do the analysis of that first.
All inside the...
Oh, not all inside the house.
Okay, all right. For those of you that are thinking, I wouldn't have started there. So there's... I would probably start with burglary as well, because that has got the one that's probably got the most actors in it, and therefore, and also you've got offences that then flow on from the burglary. Okay, so potentially that becomes your, if you're looking at section 66(2), that becomes your common unlawful purpose that you can then sort of leapfrog into more serious offences. You could, if you wanted to, start with theft as being the initial offending that occurs, if you wanted to, and that you could consider as a more discrete sort of offending. But otherwise, I would start with burglary and then you could probably deal with theft a little bit more quickly at the end than if you do theft first, and then if you start wading your way through burglary and GBH and all of that, and then you might find that actually you run out of time on that and it's more complex. Okay, so I would start with burglary. So being helpful to you, I have set out what the actus reus and mens rea requirements of burglary are. They are really very simple. And so really you just have to have someone entering a building. You'll remember that when we looked at this in the lecture, that entry doesn't have to be more than anything other than fingertips over a windowsill. Someone who's puts something through a window. Obviously, we've got entry into the actual building here itself, so that's not going to be an issue. I wouldn't have, setting out your actus reus, I wouldn't have done more than actually talk about a building. You don't need to talk about a ship. I mean, obviously, we're not talking about a ship here. So don't start, just copying out stuff from the section that is clearly not relevant to your fact pattern. All you're doing is showing me that you can type well. Okay, you're just wasting time. So don't bother doing that. And without authorisation, if authorisation is a question on the facts, then you might want to cover that off, all right? It's not raised on the facts here, so you wouldn't necessarily need to get into it too much. And also with an intention to commit an imprisonable offence, does it have to be where you've actually committed the offence? No? Okay, you've just actually got to have an intention to do so, all right? So who's going to be your principal offenders here, or offender? Now, to try and make your fact pattern easy for you, given I'm throwing quite a lot of facts at you, I've given you A, B, C again, so you've got, what I give it, Adam, Ben and Chris, and then you've got Patrick. Who's your principal? Yes?
What about Patrick, because he's the one who breaks the window to get in first?
Well, he's your more obvious principal, yeah. You've also got, another principal as well. Who would be your other principal? Adam, okay? So just because Patrick is actually the person who breaks the window, it doesn't really matter, because what matters is actually the entry into the house, okay? Entry into the house with an intention to commit an imprisonable offence. Patrick is your more obvious one. I've called him Patrick P for principal offender, just easier for you to keep track of people. But when you're looking at something quickly, but yeah, you know, Adam is just as liable, because ultimately, even though he didn't break the window, he has entered the house. And so, what's the imprisonable offence they're intending to commit? Theft of what? Food. Okay. Yes, theft of food. Right. An intention to take food, which is property. Right, to permanently deprive. They know that Patrick certainly isn't going to be able to claim a right. Adam might, but yeah, you certainly got your principal here as Patrick, and I would be trying to bring Adam in there. If you were doing this as a full fact pattern, you might want to get into that idea of whether or not Adam actually thinks he has the right to actually go in there and get food. We go back to that sort of idea of consent, you know, that we talked about previously. But certainly you've got one principal in Patrick. Adam, I suspect you could probably rope him in as well. He knows he's not got consent. He hasn't asked for it. He's aware that he doesn't have it, and not legal authorisation either. But you would want to run through those elements just to be clear. Okay. So from there, where would you go? What's your next step? Having established your principle, what's your next step from there?
Want to see if you can find any secondary parties?
Yeah, okay, so secondary parties, so you're charged under section 66, so you want to go under 1 and 2. Okay, you live at both. Okay, so, yes, one I prepared earlier. So, obviously for both of those you have to have a principle, right? So, if you want to say section 66(1) establish a principle, then it doesn't matter, or you could say for both liability under section 66(1) and 2, we're going to have a principle, so you could establish it for both. Just remember that when you are establishing a principle for 66(2), your principle has to be part of the common unlawful purpose. Okay, so don't forget that they actually have to be a member of that. Okay, so if we're looking at, let's take, for example, who's our first guy? Let's take someone, let's take Ben. So has Ben done anything to aid, abet in the commission of the offence of burglary? Now, just while you're looking at that, I have done a table that I had said I would do last week, that if you want to, that you find useful, sets out, sort of allows, you can fill it in with what people do, what's their participation, what is the timing. So for some people, having a table that you can fill out might be useful to you. I've dropped that into your modules if you want to have a look at that at some point. Some people, they find stuff like that useless, so it's up to you. But what's been done? Did he do anything to assist in the burglary? Yep.
Not entirely, because he kind of threw up and he lay down on the back floor, so it could be argued that he was incapacitated at the time of the consideration of the...
Okay, so he didn't do anything to aid and assist in the commission of the offence?
No.
No, okay. And so would you even go on to consider mens rea? No, okay. What about, was he part of the common unlawful purpose? Was he part of the agreement to carry out the burglary? I've got some people nodding and I've got some people looking sceptical. So, those of you nodding, do you want to justify why you think he was? Or do you want to have a look at the fact pattern again? What are we thinking? When was this formed?
Patrick broke the window.
Okay, so when sort of really, when you look at your fact pattern, it's about when Patrick goes, I know Mark well, he won't mind if we just go in and help ourselves, right? And Adam, who was also really drunk, says, yeah, good idea, do you know where the key is? That's when your common unlawful purpose is formed. Okay, would it have mattered if they'd gone in with the key? Is that still burglary? If someone is looking around your house and you're stupid enough to have a key under your doormat and they find that key and go into your house, is that burglary? Yeah, okay, so would it matter if they found the key and went in? No, okay, so we're still looking for burglary. Okay, so at the time that Patrick says, oh, I know Mark well, he won't mind if we go in, and you've got Adam going, oh, you're a good idea, or whatever it is he says, that's your common unlawful purpose. You've got two people who are forming an agreement to do something unlawful and to assist each other therein. Okay? Assisting each other therein is good enough as stepping into the property together, basically. Is Ben a part of that? No. What's Ben doing? He's passed out on the lawn. Do you think that I'm going to be looking for you to establish that? Yes. Okay, I want you to tell me, is he charged with burglary as a party?
He is charged.
Yeah, okay, so I need you to tell me common unlawful purpose is formed at the time that Patrick says this, Adam says that, right, an agreement to assist each other therein, at the time that the common unlawful purpose is formed and the commission of the offence continues on from there, Ben is passed out on the lawn, so he is not part of it. But was it formed any earlier than that when they said let's go to the house? Ben's mum always has good pizza. Why is that not a common unlawful purpose? I can't understand it. Yeah.
We weren't planning on doing anything illegal.
Yeah.
Just going to go get food.
Yeah, good. Okay. Right. So Ben's out on burglary. What about Chris? What are we thinking? What does Chris do? Yep.
He stays outside when they actually break in, but then later on he rushes in. So I don't know if that counts as aiding or abetting the commission of it.
Okay, so at the point, depends how you look at the, okay, well let's work our way through that, right? There's a couple of points there. So in entering the house, is he assisting or encouraging them in any way? Is it actual assistance?
Wouldn't he be like lending his presence? Do you say he's lending his presence? Like maybe not intentionally though. But...
Yeah, so again, just work your way through the elements, okay? So you go, well, is he encouraging by adding his presence to them? Is Lois going to be more threatened by 3 people in there? Was that his intention to do that? No, okay, so I don't think that you would be able to show that that was his purposeful desire to do that. What's he responding to? Lois's scream, okay? And what is, so when you're looking at what he's done before that, he said, I'm not really comfortable with this, I don't think Mark's mum would like this. That gives you a pretty good indication of what his thinking is, what his intention is. So that gives you some pretty good insight into the fact that he's not running into the house to scare Lois, he's running in because he's concerned about Lois screaming, right? So I wouldn't have said it was his intention, even if the others read it as encouragement. And certainly, I mean, yes, he's got knowledge of the essential physical elements of the offence because it's occurring. There's also potentially an argument that actually the offence has already taken place, but I wouldn't have said, when you think about Larkins in place, I wouldn't have said it's actually complete. It's actually in the in the duration of it. Right? But yeah, you've got no intention. What about the common unlawful purpose? If you can't get him under 66.1, could you get him under 66.2? Has he joined up to the common unlawful purpose? Why not? Yeah, Gemma?
He didn't, because as soon as they formed the plan, he said, I don't think it's a good idea to stay behind.
Yep, okay, yep. Right, so is that enough, do you think, to... Yep.
Because there's no agreement, citing Curtis, there must be an actual agreement between the parties to do the event.
Yeah, okay, so in the last class somebody said, well, that would be enough for withdrawal. You don't have to show withdrawal if they haven't actually joined the common unlawful purpose, right, which he clearly hasn't. Okay, he's not agreed, there's no, nothing that he does to assist each other therein that you can read by his conduct or words. Okay, so there's nothing here which says that he's joined that. Okay, what I want you to do then on your own is I want you to then go on, actually just ask the question, what is the next offence that you would then look at? Having established, you've got Adam and Patrick, certainly Patrick and probably Adam, and there is your principles for burglary. What is the next offence you're going to look at? You got theft? What happens in the pursuance of the commission of the common unlawful purpose of burglary? Anything additional? Yeah, the GBH, right? So your assault on Lois. I would go on and consider that because you're already in the fact pattern in terms of thinking about your burglary and the people involved in it. Okay, so that would be a natural progression in terms of logic. Go on and deal with GBH. Okay, Hugo, you look concerned. What's...
In terms of how we structure that in our analysis, like would that be after we establish Patrick as a principal, then we say, did he, under section 662, do we say then we establish who's probably harm? Or like, where in our analysis do we, where the
Well, so then you've got, so from there, I would go back and go, okay, so we've got Patrick and Adam as principal offenders for burglary. Now considering the offence of GBH under section 188, then you go back and you find another principal, right? Because you've got someone who's actually committed that whole offence. So from there, obviously it's going to be Patrick, that's pretty obvious. But what you're going to need to decide is whether or not you can get him under 1881 or 1882. So you then go back to your offence, establish Patrick as your principal, and then again work through your secondary party liability. Okay, now obviously you're only going to be considering people who have joined up to your common unlawful purpose. There's no point in considering Ben because he didn't even sign up to the burglary. And the GBH, you're going to have to think, has that occurred in the commission of the common unlawful purpose of burglary? All right, so that's your logical progression. If you then consider theft, you're then going to have to go back to think about, okay, well, let's come back to the burglary, and then you've got to get your head back into, hang on a minute, who were the people that actually were my parties to the burglary or secondary parties to the burglary? Now, in this fact pattern, you haven't established a secondary party, but if you have, that's going to be messy for you to then get your head back into that. Okay, so If you wanted to deal with the theft first so that it's discreetly done, then by all means do that. I would deal with it last because I just think it would be easier, whereas this is your more complex argument. But it depends on what works for you. Okay, so let's see how you get on the next let's see how 10 minutes and think about your GBH. And if you get time, then maybe you could look at your theft, or you could just briefly think about Lois. Lois is charged with section 202C, and maybe think about defences. I'm happy to be guided by you as to what you would rather do, whether it be theft or Lois. Okay, all right, I'll check in at 22 and see how you're going. Any questions before you do that? No, okay.
Cause grievous bodily harm, annoyance, menace, or displease.
So that was the word you made.
Yeah, that's it. Outrageous is the meant.
So Patrick, right? Specifically, so X-rays, yes. The grievous bodily, so cause grievous bodily harm.
Because wounding, because isn't wounding just like breaking the skin?
Yeah, how much was damage?
Ruptured spleen.
Mens red?
Yeah, you can see that. The intent
It's down to the grievous stomach.
was a knife. So that part I took the pole was significant.
Yeah, no, like result factor.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then everybody saw it. Self-defense is subordinate self-defense is usually removed. It's eventually hit the ground, so he was talking about his hands. So he was mistaken for his hand.
So he doesn't need defensive.
Intoxication. Yeah, so that's fine. Even if it was acute injuries, subjective fatigue. Was the force useful? She perceived imminent immediate to attack. So there's wait, so
Hey, let's see how you got on. So when we're looking at, obviously the main person we're going to be looking at in terms of our secondary party for GBH is which offender? Okay, so, no, sorry, our secondary party, yeah. So our principal party is going to be Patrick, and our secondary party is going to be Adam, okay. So in looking at our principal party of Patrick, did you establish GBH, wounding, maiming or disfiguring? Yes, which one? Or did you not pin it down? Do you think it's GBH? Really serious harm?
You could say it's wounded with the breaking of the skin.
Yep, breaking of the skin, and normally even if it's by a flow of blood, I mean if I scratch my skin that's breaking the skin, you're also looking for a flow of blood. Is it GBH as well though? Is it really serious harm? I would have said that someone stabbing you and rupturing your spleen is really serious harm. I wouldn't sort of go to the pharmacy and say, oh, I've just, yeah, got a band-aid, right? Yeah, I think you can establish the level of harm as GBH, okay? Now, for mens rea, you're going to have to show for 1881 that you've got an intention to cause GBH, right? That is your purpose, desire, or you knew with a virtual certainty. Can you establish that? And if so, what facts are you going to use to establish that? Can I say, well, I mean, he ought to have known if he stabbed her with a knife in the stomach that he was going to cause really serious harm. Yeah, I can say that. That's good. So if you write that in your exam pattern, I'd go, okay, tick. Would I? Why would I not? Yes?
Isn't it a subjective test?
It is a subjective test. And if I talk about everyone knows, or he ought to have known, he should have known, what sort of test am I applying? Objective. Okay, so don't use words like he should have known, everyone knows, ought to have known, you have to be a doofus not to know, right? Okay, those words mean that you are applying an objective test when it's a subjective state of mind. How are you going to infer that he has a subjective state of mind of either intending to cause GBH or one of these lower mens rea states? Yes?
Would reckless disregard he still has a subjectively appreciated risk, right? But then, isn't that like a lower threshold for validating subjectively?
So reckless disregard is recklessness, a conscious appreciation of the risk and took it anyway. Okay, so I mean you're not going to have any problems establishing that. Pretty much any jury is going to infer that he had a conscious appreciation of the risk. Okay. I would be looking for something a little higher than that though. What are you going to look at? How are you going to establish that? He doesn't say anything. Yep.
He had a knife with him,
Sorry, I've just realised I had to. Yep, he had a knife.
like the fact that he brought the knife with him, and it wasn't like he just saw the knife sitting there and picked it up. Brought it with him, sort of indicates that there was like a virtual certainty that if he were to use the knife, it would cause really significant.
I think what you're establishing there is an intention to use the knife, but it's quite a big jump from the intention to maybe use the knife if needed to an intention to cause the level of harm that we're talking about. So I think that's probably a little bit too big a leap. And yeah, I think you would have problems establishing that. Daisy?
Would the fact that he's previously got in trouble at school for possession mean likely has a knowledge of that? Like, how would that factor in?
Has he used it before? Do we know that? Okay. So what's missing on the facts? Has he tripped over anything? Okay, so does it suggest then Like if I walked up to Daisy and I punched her in the face, really hard, and I broke her nose. Sorry, Daisy. What would you infer from those actions? Would you infer that I intended to do them? Yeah. Would you infer that in breaking her nose I'd used quite a bit of force? Yeah. So, yeah.
Would you then say that him pulling out the knife from his back pocket and then stabbing his stomach was a conscious decision to do that? It wasn't like it was in his hand, he accidentally waved it around and got her in the stomach. He actually pulled it out from his pocket and then stabbed. Would that indicate a conscious decision to at least injure?
It certainly shows an intention to actually stab. Where you've got the problem is how do you establish the level of harm he intended? Right, that's where it becomes difficult. Right, so what I'm trying to get you to think about is how do you infer from someone's actions what their substantive state of mind is in the absence of anything else, right? So you've got enough there to say, well, clearly this is a voluntary actus reus. There's no question that it was involuntary. Now, I've actually never tried to stab anyone, but but you know, I've certainly done things like, you know, you're trying to stud a leg of ham or a leg of lamb or something. To actually pierce skin with a knife is actually quite difficult. You have to use quite a bit of force, right? So you could infer that there's a bit of force that's been used, and if you use force, then you are at least intending to cause actual bodily harm. Right? If I just go up to Daisy and I give her a light sort of a bang on the nose, come on Daisy, you know, make sure you've got friends that turn up to the workshop on time. It's my last class, come on. So, you know, then that's obviously I'm not applying a lot of force. I've got no real intention to do any real harm, right? So just think about the level of force that's been used here, and you can think, well, what can we infer from that in terms of his intention, in the absence of anything else? Because sometimes you won't have it. Yeah, Daisy.
Could you cite Queen and Black for that, or is that more like related to Luke's? Or could you say like this is an example where the circumstances can
Remind me what Queen and Black is.
That's the one where he goes to the cafe and he stabs the man in the back of the neck with the knife.
Oh, and he said it was a lucky blow.
Yeah.
Yep. That, I mean, in that case, they inferred that he had intention because you actually, it wasn't because he went. Yeah, that's right. Because he did. He severed through the spinal cord. Yep. That would be a good one to draw on. Yeah, we're in inference of someone's state of mind. Okay, so let's having established at least that you've got an intention to injure. Possibly GBH, and it is significant as to what you've established because when you get to probable consequence, you're going to have to show that the person knew that the offence that is committed could well happen. Okay, and so when you're thinking about foresight of the elements, the mens rea is one of the elements. Okay, so here we've got. So we're bringing in Adam. Has Adam aided or abetted in the commission of the offence of GBH? Has he assisted or encouraged in the offence of GBH? Did he do anything to assist in that? Before or during? No. Okay, did he do anything to encourage in that? No. Did he say anything afterwards that might assist you to know what his intention was in that regard? Okay, well he says, what the hell are you doing? I can't remember the words where I put in there, but right, so that sort of tells you that that is clearly not satisfied. But, so he's obviously joined the common unlawful purpose of committing burglary. Was the serious violent offending, or was the violent offending that occurred, did that occur in the commission of the common unlawful purpose of burglary? Yes. Okay, so that somebody came out and therefore he then carried out that violent offending in the course of it, in the implementation of the common unlawful purpose of burglary. So then it comes down to this element here. Did Adam know, did he have foresight that the offending that happened could well happen? Did he have foresight that serious offending could occur? Serious violent offending? Is that something that could well happen? Yep.
I mean, he knew that, like, Patrick brought a knife before, but from his reaction when he says, "What the hell are you doing?" that kind of implies a level of surprise. So it's probably that he didn't foresee it, that it was a probable consequence, because the threshold is not just like, oh, it might happen. It's like, I think the case law says it's probable.
Mm.
And then I don't know if you could argue defense of withdrawal, because he tried to like undo the situation by calling an ambulance.
Well, withdrawal's got to happen. Your timing of withdrawal is really important, and then how do you? And this is the problem with your, you know, if you join up to your common unlawful purpose, then if he's got some foresight of violent offending, then it's kind of too late, unless you actually can really undo what you've done, which is really, really difficult, and the courts are very, very strict on the withdrawal defence. I mean, in the case of the arson case, it was sort of that thing, you've actually driven the car up there, you couldn't undo that, okay? So, where your sticking point is that even if you had some evidence to show that he thought that this guy he's a bit unpredictable, he might do something violent, I think you're probably going to have some problems in showing, depending on where you've set your mens rea, that he actually had foresight that an offending would occur with, with the mens rea, the intention of causing that level of harm. Is the weapon in this case going to be significant? Is it an essential element to the offending? Is it an essential element to the offence? No. Okay, so if he didn't know about the weapon, could that level of harm have been caused in the absence of a weapon? Can you cause GBH in the absence of a weapon? Yeah. Okay, so I would have said in that, because it's not part of the offending, if the offending itself had been section 202C, which requires an essential element of a weapon, then clearly he would need to know about the weapon. Does he need to know, could this level of harm have been caused in the absence of a weapon? Potentially yes, but does he know about the intention to cause that level of harm, depending on where you've set it? Okay, so for anyone who's interested in, who wants to read more about that, this is where you're looking at the Burke case, where they discussed the Vaihu case, where they were looking at what was the level of harm that the secondary parties were aware of in terms of the principal offender and GBH offending. And they mentioned that in the Burke case at paragraph 123. So it's not, it's reasonably complex in trying to figure out your probable consequence where you've got levels of harm. That's where it becomes really quite difficult. What about when we're thinking about section 202C, and we're thinking about Lois really quickly. So Lois is charged with section 202C. Has she assaulted a person? Assault is what? An intentional application of force. And when you have assault with a weapon, you have to show. We just look at the section. What? Has she used a weapon? Uses anything as a weapon. So she's intentional application of force using anything as a weapon. In circumstances that prima facie show an intention, has she intended to use it as a weapon? Pretty clearly. Okay. Does she have a defence? What's her defence? Self-defence. Okay. So when you're looking at self-defence, what are you covering? Is that subjective or objective? Subjective. What are the circumstances she believes herself to be in? Subjective state of mind. She comes into the kitchen, she finds that there are strange people in there. Well, she sees Patrick, she doesn't know who he is. She knows Adam, but she can't see him. Has she acted in defence of herself? Yep. And has she used reasonable force in those circumstances? Daisy?
Would that be an issue because she goes into the kitchen rather than leaving? So there's that question of like imminence and the alternative course of action.
That she had the ability to retreat?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, potentially, yeah. Yep, given that she creeps through the kitchen with the baseball bat, it's not if she goes in there and then goes, oh crap, there's someone in my house. Yeah, so she's gone, yeah. But I guess what are her options of retreat? Because she have to climb out the window? What, you know, where is she? Yep, sorry, you had your hand up?
Oh yeah, I was just saying it seems to me that she hears someone moving around in her house, but she doesn't know it's not an animal or something like that until she sees them in the kitchen and there's no real option of retrieving the circumstances she believes to be.
Yeah, at the point that she actually acted in self-defence, there's no option of retreat. But was there an option of retreat prior to that? Could be something to consider. Is it? I mean, the threat is it imminent for her? Yep, she's got 2 people in the kitchen. Like, is it proportionate? She's got a weapon. Did they have a weapon then? Okay, but she's got 2 people and she's 1 person. So that would be something you might take into account. Remember, we don't weigh things to a nicety. But, you know, these are the sorts of things that you want to be thinking about and bring in your after the cyber case. Okay. You had a question? No.
I'm thinking with the hitting him across the side of the head, is that proportional? Because she's gone for any other else of the body, or is that just
I think that's where you start bringing in the idea that you don't expect people to actually behave with sort of, you know, it's easier to look at those things in hindsight.
It's probably dark as well, so she wouldn't have been able to.
I think they're in the middle of at the end of sort of the afternoon. I'm not sure that it's, yeah. But also, you know, I think the jury looking at this would go, well, you're a woman confronted by 2 guys in your house. You're going to hit with wherever you can. Yeah. And actually, that's the advice the police will actually give you, having been in that situation myself. Have you got anything to hit with? Yes. Okay, I want you to hit him in the head, and I want you to hit him really fucking hard. is pretty much the advice they'll give you. So, yeah, they'll tell you to hit where you can, and so I would think you'd find that a jury would generally be, they're not going to weigh that too much to a nicety when you've got a woman and 2 guys. Yeah. But the important thing is that you actually weigh all those things up and you show that you understand the law. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's it from me. You will have Kate back next week, so this is my last class with you. Thank you. You've been a pleasure to teach. I will have lots of office hours in the coming weeks for anyone who has questions. And I hopefully will not see any of you next year. And good luck with your exams. All right.